What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel, and we're continuing on with the high-res modeling of the Fallout Vault. So we're back in Blender and we're starting to work on one of these bottom panels that's under the window. And right now I've got a solidify modifier on it. And we're just working on the front piece, so you can see it kind of explode and get a little weird there. Doesn't like that very much. And I'm going to add a bevel to it. Eventually, I won't be using the bevel or subdivision surface on this asset, because it kind of creates like some weird shading on the edges there, and I would need to connect that up, and I'm going to switch to a different method later on. You can kind of see where it's not connected there. So you'd have to actually fix that up, and so I won't be using the bevel subdivision surface to actually make this high-res piece. So I've added a bunch of rivets on here, or bolts, or whatever they are. And you could do this a bunch of different ways. But because in Unreal, like, if you're using nanite, the mesh isn't really a factor anymore. So instead of adding that as a texture or something like that, I just like to build everything in geometry now, because it's like a higher fidelity of detail. But that just depends on what you're doing. If you have different restrictions, then I would have to do this in a different way. You can kind of see on the edge there, on the actual panel, it's got some weird shading, and that's going to be fixed with the remesher node system that we're going to do later. I find that it's a little bit nicer in terms of speed, because you just model your base mesh and then you can UV it from there. and you have this super high level of detail on top, which we'll get into later. So here I'm just doing a little bit of organization, and I'm just going to duplicate this panel over just for visual kind of the layout. And later on I'll just UV one of these panels, and then that way I can reuse it in other locations. So here we're starting to work on the panels, and just adding a couple modifiers here to cut out the shapes, and we'll be selecting the hard edges and turning the mean bevel weight to 1, and adding a subdivision surface, remesher, corrective curve, and a decimate modifier. And the reason why I like using those is, or using this method, is because when you're modeling your asset, the base model is going to be your low res model, and with the modifiers on top of it, that's going to be your high res model. Because I'm going to be baking out all my textures and doing unique textures in this case, I'm using this method. If you're using trim sheet or something else, you'd probably want to model slightly differently, because the texture is going to be coming from an existing trim that you've made. In this case, I wanted to do this method and do custom textures. It just depends on how the workflow is or what you're doing. So depending on what the need is for what you're doing, you have to kind of adapt how you're going to build things to the methodology. So right here I'm using like a Boolean and cutting out my shapes, and it has like some rivets or bolts in here, so there was a bunch of cutouts and then some lines. So basically I'm trying to match the reference to the fallout tunnel as closely as I can, and I also wanted to see how this method would work on like a larger scale. Typically I would use this kind of method for like a weapon or a custom asset, because it would have its own texture set. It wouldn't be using a trim sheet or something like that. In this case, like if this was for a game and it was going to be used in a production, I probably would do this. I wouldn't use this method on this. And I may model these a little differently, but it just depends on what you're going for. And in this case, I decided to do this method. So right now, adding some more cutters, and eventually I commit to the model, and then I just clean it up so I can add the other type of modifiers to it. The caveat to using that is it's very heavy on your system, and it can cause crashes depending on what your system can handle. So I'm not sure I would recommend it fully. I didn't really have any problems with it, and sometimes it can corrupt your Blender project. That's very weird, so make sure you do lots of versioning. Yeah, but you'll be able to see how nicely the edges are when you use this method. Here I'm just cleaning up some of the old block out, don't need it anymore. As I go, I remove things that we don't need. So I've committed to my shape and I'm going to do some cleanup. But I've run into some weird problem. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to figure it out here. Sometimes weird things happens and you just have to figure out what to do. I don't remember exactly what this issue was. It was not scaling properly. I think I may have changed the boundary or something, so it's scaling from a different location. There we go. So that inner ring there is unnecessary for the method I'm using. And I don't know why I removed this center line. No point to doing that. But no one's really going to see inside here anyways. It's just a minor detail. So now I'm going to start actually making the mesh, cleaning up all these unconnected vertices so that everything has joined vertices. Some weird problem happening again, not really sure why. It's always something funny that goes on when you're making stuff. So I think I just delete some things and mirror it. No, there we go. Something in the middle there. Shouldn't be there. Fill. After building this piece, I could probably do it in like a quarter of the time. Sometimes when you're modeling, you're just trying to figure out like how and what you're gonna do. And then after you build it, you're like, ugh, should have done it this way or that way. So what happened there is I crashed and then I forgot to press play when I was recording. So you can see all these pink lines here. Basically what I did is set the hard edges, the mean bevel weight up to 1, and then applied subdivision surface, remesh, curve corrective, and decimate. And what that will do is you'll see a bit later on when we get zoom out here. I'm just making a new piece, kind of a different panel, cleaning up this stuff. The geometry may look a little strange with the lines connecting the way they are. It's just for what I'm using it for. I don't need it to be like quads or anything like that. So it's more or less because the method I'm using, this is the shape I'm getting out of it, or the cleanup mesh anyways. And what I like is that this is going to be my low poly, so I'm spending more time on this piece and making sure that it's cleaned up, so when I bake it later on, it will bake a clean version from the Highrez. I don't really like the way the pinching is going on with those vertices, so I'm just kind of repointing them to a different spot. Sometimes I have to apply the mirror, remove the mirror, apply the mirror again. It just saves you time doing half the work on one side if you can. More cleanup. And here I don't like the pinching again. And each time you're done your model, you make sure that you don't have any floating vertices in the mesh. So just merge by distance and make sure that nothing's sitting there by itself, because you're going to run into weird issues later on if that happens. This is a little ugly detail I did here. I wouldn't recommend this kind of thing here. It's kind of pointless. I could have just merged it down, it would have been fine. But, you know, sometimes you haven't had enough coffee in the day. if you're going to use the remesher remesh modifier, the one thing you got to make sure that there's no holes inside the mesh. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's going to explode on you. So make sure that you don't have any holes. So you can see here like how nice this is going to look. So that nice bevel there on the edge of that is just really nice, and it bakes cleanly and nicely. So when you texture in Substance Painter, you've got a really nice mesh. So here we're working on the window, and I started with a mesh, and I'm going to convert it into a curve and go into the bevel parameters and push the depth up. And this will give me a mesh around that curve. And then I can convert it back into a mesh from the curve. This is a nice way of getting a tube shape that I need for the window. here I'm just fine-tuning this a little bit. The shading is slightly weird, so I'm just fixing this up a little bit. And using the set flow to readjust these verts. It's a nice tool to use when you want to move things across a plane without creating any deformation. So this connector piece is going to be a good example of using the remeshing method. So I've set the hard edges to 1 on the mean crease, and take a look at the bevel with the subdivision surface. It just didn't look good. So I'm going to copy the attributes over. So let's copy them to that little part, and it just looks so much nicer. So we're coming to the end of the video here, and we're almost done the window. I'm just adding in, there's a little detail on the window, and that's the caulking that goes around the metal piece that's attached to the wall. And it's a great little detail because these type of windows, or any windows, have caulking on them, or caulking, or however you pronounce it. But when you do the texturing of it, you can have the rubber with paint on it, and it creates like a nice transition from the metal frame into the wall. And you'll see that later on. And usually windows and stuff like this have this type of detail in real life, so it's a nice little detail to add in here. So the window's done. I've added all the rivets, just an array modifier just for visual cue. And the window here, it has a lot of geometry in it, which you're like, why don't you just make it a plane and add normal matte to kind of deform it and warp it. And again, just because Unreal, like, it's going to be a nanite mesh, so I just figure I'll add the detail in and move it a bit, move some of the vertices in space. This way it'll create some nice bent kind of refraction in the window, in the glass. You could do this a bunch of different ways, but this is how I decided to do it in this case. That's it for this video. If you liked the video, like and subscribe. I know it was a bit long, so thanks for sticking in there. In the next video, we'll be modeling the Highrez door, and from there we'll be moving on to UVs. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the next video.